All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first in our webinar series on recovery and resilience on Main Street. I'm Patrick McMahon, the CEO of the Connecticut Main Street Center. Connecticut Main Street Center, which is celebrating its 25th anniversary year, is the expert resource for developing and sustaining vibrant downtowns that fuel our state's prosperity. Our mission is to assess, educate, convene, advocate to develop and grow our traditional downtowns, village centers, and urban mixed-use neighborhood. In a moment, we will present first, next, later, safeguarding small businesses during the pandemic, 26 strategies for local leaders. But first, just a few housekeeping items. Today's session will be about 1 hour. Please feel free to type in your questions in the chat function as we go. We will monitor the chat box and have Kennedy, our presenter, address questions when we pause for questions and answers. A recording of today's session and a PDF version of the presentation will be available on our website at ctmainstreet.org in the next day or so, as are all of our workshop archives that you can locate on our website. You will receive a brief evaluation in the next day or so. We greatly appreciate your input so that we can continually improve these sessions. Evaluations are required for certified planner CM credits. Our robust educational and networking events, Main Street Forums for the 21st Century, are our most recognized program, attracting hundreds of attendees annually. We have 100 people signed up for this webinar today, which is phenomenal. Thank you for joining us. We couldn't do the work that we do without these sponsors, Webster Bank, United Illuminating, and the Farmington Bank Community Foundation that helps us with our educational programming. Our corporate sponsors, M&T Bank, Capital for Change, People's United Bank, and Windsor Federal. We're very thankful for our founding sponsors, Eversource and the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development, as well as our growth partners, United Illuminating, and the Connecticut State Historic Preservation Office. We also want to thank our AICP certification maintenance provider, FHI. We have plenty of planners that are on the Zoom link today. We appreciate your attendance. And now let me introduce our speaker for today. Kennedy Smith is one of the nation's foremost experts on commercial district revitalization and independent business development, and is a senior researcher with the Institute for Local Self-Reliance's Independent Business Initiative. Her work focuses on analyzing the factors threatening independent businesses and developing policy tools so that communities can address these issues and build thriving, equitable local economies. Kennedy previously served as the staff of the National Trust for Historic Preservation's National Main Street Center for 19 years, including 14 of them as the center's director. She has been named as one of the 100 most influential urbanists of all time by Planet Zen in 2017. Very impressive. We're thrilled to have you with us this morning, Kennedy, and we look forward to hearing your insights.
Super, thank you, Patrick. Let me pop my screen up here, 1 sec. Super, can you all see that? Great. I'm going to talk about these 26 strategies this morning, and I wanted to, for a second, to sort of tell you where it came from, how this evolved. I've been, since the pandemic began, sort of compiling a list of small business assistance programs that local and state governments have put together for small businesses. And the list has grown now to about 800 different programs that I've found. And these are all financial and technical assistance programs. The amount of money that communities have put into them is about $8.6 billion at this point, and coming from, some from traditional sources that you would expect, like the CARES Act allocations that go to state governments and then to communities. But some are just heart-wrenching and very touching. Things like city councilors who agree to forego their salaries for the remainder of the year so that they can raise $50,000 to give out as $1,000 grants and things like that. Really innovative and imaginative. But in the course of putting this list together, I've been speaking with some of the people involved in structuring these programs and hearing from them about the kinds of needs they're seeing that their small businesses have, and some of the other kinds of programs they've put together. And it began to kind of fall into three categories for me, thinking about the things that people need to do, communities need to do immediately, and then sort of long-term, and then later down the road as we begin to focus on how the world is going to be reshaped by all of this. This is a photo of the report. It's free online, so I encourage you all to download it if you haven't already done so. I wanted to start by saying that this is a pretty stressful time for everyone. We're all going through a lot of changes and discovering things, making things up as we go to adapt to this sort of new world. But I wanted to say that the people who are involved in downtown revitalization are really at the front lines of this. You are the ones who have contact with small businesses every day. And I've always, of course, thought that downtown revitalization programs, Main Street organizations, bids were absolutely essential. But there has never been a time in the 40-year, 50-year history of the Main Street program that they've been more important than they are right now. So hang in there, and I think we're going to emerge from all of this with even stronger organizations. So first, the first category of first things are things that communities have done to sort of provide quick relief to keep businesses afloat. Next are the things that communities are doing to help businesses adapt and pivot, finding new ways to operate. And then the later stuff are sort of the is fixing the systemic problems that the pandemic has laid bare, has highlighted. I'm going to not talk too much about the first things, but I'm going to go more to the next and later. So I'm going to skip around a little bit. These are the things that we put into the category of first things to do. And I'll go through a few of them. The first one on there, help small businesses apply for federal financial relief, is already off the list because the federal financial relief is so far gone. We don't know if Congress is going to put together another aid package or not. If they do, it's likely they're going to bring back some form of the Paycheck Protection Program again, with some significant modifications, because it didn't work for all businesses in the first round. So let's talk about creating local small business relief programs. Like I say, I've tracked about 800 of these so far, totaling about $8.5 billion. And these are really crucial. They also have fallen into several sort of categories that parallel the organization of this report. The initial ones that came out were in April, and they were really designed just to help businesses pay April and May rent and keep people on their payroll. Very immediate needs. The ones that I'm seeing come out now are more focused on pivoting, developing new business models, and also on reconfiguring businesses so that they can operate safely, putting in plexiglass barriers, spacing out seating, things like that. It's a wonderfully sort of diverse and robust group, and I encourage you all to go to ILSR's website. If you just Google ILSR and big list, you'll see the big list pop up, and you can pan through them and see all these amazing programs that communities have put together, small and large. Skipping down a little bit, another thing I think is still very important in this sort of early phase is helping businesses negotiate with landlords to relieve rent pressure. I'm seeing a couple of models come out of this. One is just renegotiating a lease altogether so that instead of paying a set amount of rent per square foot, businesses are now paying a lower base rate and a percentage of their sales above that. That relieves some of the pressure on the business, and it also gives the landlords an incentive to help the business succeed. The other model that I'm seeing is landlords adding a couple of years onto the lease, extending the lease, reducing the rent, and basically amortizing that amount of rent that they've reduced it by over the longer course of the lease, so that it gradually escalates back up to where it was. And that, although it leaves the landlords with some short-term gaps, it seems to be working pretty well for a lot of businesses that I'm running into. Skipping down a little bit, encouraging everyone to patronize small businesses during the pandemic. This one is, I think, really interesting for downtown organizations, because it means, instead of doing the kind of big promotional events that we did for years, it now means doing very focused events or focused activities that don't bring down big crowds, but that target specific kinds of shoppers and consumers and visitors. and finding ways to keep them engaged with what's happening in the downtown area. So this one is obviously a very important one and evolving as we speak. Ensuring that big box and dollar stores are adhering to the same rules that small, quote unquote, non-essential stores are required to follow. This one kind of drives me crazy. It drove me crazy, especially in the early days of the pandemic, where small businesses had to close because they sold clothes or books, just one thing, that were considered non-essential. But anybody could go out to the big box store to buy groceries, or go to a dollar store because they sold groceries. And while they're there, also buy clothing or books or toys or any of the things that the smaller stores that had to close had done. There were a few communities, even as early as March, that kind of caught on to that and passed ordinances requiring that big box stores and dollar stores, any store that sells groceries, close down its non-essential departments. People could still buy those things online and pick them up curbside, but could no longer browse in those departments because that was an unfair advantage. And now a couple of states have now fallen suit and done the same thing. But there are still big gaps where there are plenty of communities where small businesses haven't fully opened, but you can go to a big box store and buy any of the things you could buy in a downtown shop. So I think that's an important loophole to close. And then finally, in the category of first things is capping the app-based restaurant meal delivery commissions and fees. Before the pandemic, most of the restaurateurs that I've spoken with said that they use these delivery services maybe for like 5% of their sales. It didn't account for a huge percentage, but it brought in new customers, or it served customers who were not inclined to eat out as often as others were. And so it was an important loss leader for the restaurants. Restaurant margins are typically between 10 and 15%. Grubhub is charging 20% as its base delivery rate, and then they add on another 10 or 20% for marketing and other services. Some services that businesses don't even request, like having a sort of a parallel website developed where Grubhub can inflate the prices a little bit to basically build in its delivery fees. But customers don't know that they're not looking at the actual restaurant fee. And then Grubhub charges the restaurant for those services. This is a receipt that has circulated a bit online. This is from a restaurant in Chicago. And in March, you can see that Grubhub delivered $1,042 worth of meals for them. After all these fees, the restaurant only got $376, so basically a third of that. So they lost 60% of their revenue by using this delivery app. And I'm picking on Grubhub here, but DoorDash, Postmates, Uber Eats are all doing the same thing. So a lot of communities and states, in fact, the entire state of New Jersey, have passed emergency ordinances that will expire within 90 days or so of whenever the emergency order is lifted, to cap those delivery fees for the pandemic, because restaurants are so dependent on pickup and delivery now. Most of these are capping them at 15% for all fees together. Some have gone even lower and capped them at 10%, and one community's even capped it at 5%. And the interesting thing is that in the midst of all of this, there are lots and lots of local and alternative delivery services that are popping up that are structured in a completely different way. They're not funded by venture capitalists and don't have this sort of major profit motivation driving them. So as long as they're making a little bit of a profit, they're doing fine. This is one called Knock Knock KC in Kansas City, which is more of a staff-driven approach to delivering restaurant meals and ordering them. This is a Chow Now, which is a platform only. They don't do deliveries, but what they do is they charge a monthly subscription fee to restaurants for online ordering services, and then people either the restaurant can hire its own deliverers, or they can use it simply for curbside pickup. And they're completely committed to small businesses and small restaurants and making the finances of that work. So instead of paying 30% of each meal as a commission, a restaurant can sign up for Chow Now for $99 a month and have a great ordering platform. Now moving on to the next, helping businesses adapt and pivot. Again, I'm going to skip around a little bit here. The first one to mention is be flexible about the rules. And I think every community in the country is doing this now. We've waived parking requirements that were there before. We're helping businesses, create walk-up windows and drive-throughs, and pushing restaurant tables out into the streets, and letting businesses have kiosks in the street. Things that would have flipped out a traffic engineer 6 months ago now seem pretty commonplace. The big one to keep an eye on is that winter is coming, and we are going to be having some problems with trying to figure out how to make winter dining outdoors work. If you haven't seen this yet, go to Google a Chicago winter dining and IDO. Chicago had this sort of open source, a crowdsourced competition that just closed this past week to ask people to submit ideas for how to make winter commerce work in cold climates like that. They had 620 submissions, I think, and you can flip through them all, and some of them are pretty cool. Most of them have to do with some kind of pod, but there are lots of other suggestions that are out there too, including one that I really love, which is let's put pipes under the streets and have a radiant heating system in the downtown to keep snow and ice off too, in addition to making the streets warm. Helping businesses operate safely, of course, and this will also be a challenge, I think, as the winter months come on. But communities are adapting to this pretty quickly, and everything I hear from communities is that people really like this and are thinking that they might want to have this sort of outdoor experience be something that lingers after the pandemic ends. Some communities are sort of going a little bit further and are asking businesses to meet certain safety criteria before they can operate. Ithaca did this, and they actually have a sort of a three color system where, depending on how well a business is doing in terms of providing social distancing, barriers, hand washing stations, whatever it might be, they get a green card, a yellow card, or a red card that has to go in the storefront window. And customers then know, just by looking at the window, how well that business is doing at keeping them and their customers and their workers safe. A little Big Brother-ish, but I sort of like the approach. I've now seen a recommendation from the CDC because of the strange tension over wearing masks or not wearing masks, that there's beginning to be violence in small businesses because people come in not wearing masks, store personnel ask them to wear masks. So the CDC is now recommending that small businesses install panic buttons in their stores so that they can quickly call police if they have a problem with unmasked people. Hard to believe we're at this point. Getting small independently owned businesses online. Those of you who know me and have heard me speak before know that I have been talking about this one for years and years and years, the importance of omni-channel retailing, and of reaching out to the world to find customers to augment local sales. Now it's obviously everybody suddenly gets it and knows how important it is to do that. There are lots of platforms that are popping up for helping businesses quickly and easily get online and design good online storefronts. Personally, I love Shopify. They're based in Canada. They're completely committed to locally owned businesses and making it as easy as they possibly can for businesses to get online. One of the more interesting sort of hybrid small business assistance programs that I'm seeing evolve are programs that offer businesses some cash to help pay for their sort of online conversion, but that also then pair them with tech whizzes in the community who can coach them individually, not just on the mechanics of putting a good website together, but also on their web strategy and how they can use the web to augment their sales and develop its own sort of business plan for that. Here's a program that's doing exactly that in Detroit called Digital Main Street. More of its pages here. They are partnered with Google, Shopify, MasterCard, Microsoft, Facebook, Intuit, QuickBooks, and the government of Canada to basically get 3,000 small businesses online every month that haven't been online before. And lots of, like I say, independent coaching to help them do that. Mesa, Arizona has also done a similar program where they've sort of combined grants with webinars to help businesses sort of rethink how to use a website, and then one-on-one technical assistance, mostly from millennials who are really good at this, who can work with the business owner to help them figure out how to do it. Chow Now, which I just mentioned a second ago, is doing this also. helping small restaurants develop their websites that they haven't had before. This is a restaurant in my neighborhood that, after being closed for several months, is now open again and operating with a ChowNow platform. This website, which I think is a really nice one, is completely driven by ChowNow and lives on their server. Helping small businesses re-envision their plans, think through, is the stuff that you're selling now still going to have a market after the pandemic? How do you reach people? How can you pivot? And this goes everything from the very basic to, yeah, we need to sort of have a different sort of delivery system for things that people buy in the store plus things they buy online, to really radically rethinking things. You probably have heard of this, but this was an animal sanctuary in California, which was completely dependent on admission fees until the pandemic. Now that they have no admission fees, they decided to basically have their animals be available to be rented for Zoom meetings. It's called Goat to Meeting, and for $75 for a half hour, you can have a goat or a llama or a camel join your Zoom. And they have made more money doing that than they ever did through admissions. Just astonishing pivot there for them. This is sort of a nice middle of the road pivot that I kind of like. This is a second generation jewelry store in North Carolina. The daughter and her husband of the original owners just took over the store recently, and they redesigned the interior layout. There they are, there's the couple. They redesigned the interior by examining how people are exploring their website. So they looked at the website and they realized that that there are some people who just make a beeline for their sort of branded jewelry. So they've now put a showcase right in the middle of the store as you walk in the door that has all of their branded merchandise there. So this is if you're online and browsing, you would go right to that part of the website. You can go to the store in the same way. And then they also found that people who are shopping for engagement rings are now buying them as loose diamonds and then getting the fitting afterwards. And that loose diamonds on websites are generally sort of organized in a grid. So they've put in their showcases now grids that have their loose diamonds in it. So it very closely resembles or feels like the experience that you have online. So their physical store is sort of resembling that browsing process. I thought it was kind of an ingenious way to do that. Very closely related to helping businesses go online is helping them create new distribution channels, new ways that they can sell things without maybe physically coming into contact with people. That can be shipping, it can be doing deliveries. This is a yarn shop in Southern California that found it didn't have quite enough market demand to support a physical yarn shop in one town. So they have a yarn delivery van, basically a mobile store that travels around a couple days a week. There's the inside of it. And by going to 3 or 4 communities, they have enough market demand in total to make the business work well. There's a vending machine. This happens to be a butcher shop, and it's a refrigerated machine, but after they close at 5 p.m., you can still go buy your ground chuck if you want. This is a grocery store chain in Texas. It's really kind of beloved in Texas, called HEB. And very early in the pandemic, HEB reached out to restaurants in all the communities where it has stores and offered to basically sell ready-to-eat meals or ready-to-prepare meals from those restaurants on their store shelves, since they were an essential business and remained open. A really nice service that they've offered. And I think a good model for lots of businesses in the future. If you think about it, that's how department stores operate. Clothing lines and other product manufacturers essentially lease space, square footage inside the department store, and the department store staff then provides the sales backup for that. I think we're going to see more of that coming out of the pandemic as businesses co-merchandise with each other. I've already seen bookstores beginning to collaborate with restaurants to put books around the restaurants and things like that. Then finally, fixing these systemic problems. And these are all important. We're not going to talk about all of them, but if you think about the kinds of sort of challenges that we ran into, like one of the things that Paycheck Protection Program failed at was that business owners needed to have a good, solid relationship with a bank in order to have that bank process their Paycheck Protection Program application for them. And there are lots of people who lack credit, lots of business owners who lack credit or don't have a good banking relationship in the US, and those people have been kind of shut out of the process. Unfortunately, they tend to be businesses owned by women and minorities and veterans. And there are many other sort of things that have become kind of glaring problems during the pandemic. And this is a good opportunity for us to really rethink some of those things. A few that I wanted to mention are, first of all, setting appropriate limits on new commercial development. The numbers, you know, the estimates that we're hearing from commercial real estate pundits about how many shopping malls are going to close, how many small businesses are likely to fail, are just horrifying. It used to be that they would say, I kept hearing the International Council of Shopping Centers say that they predicted that probably, you know, 10, 20% of shopping malls would fail by the end of 2030. Now they're saying that half to 2/3 could fail by the end of this year. That's a lot of vacant commercial space that our communities are going to have on our hands to deal with. And it absolutely sort of highlights the need for us to collectively say, we cannot build any new commercial space until we've used and absorbed all the space that we already have. Shopping malls and shopping centers are being converted to new uses very quickly. I'm already seeing them turned into affordable housing. I'm seeing them turned into distribution centers, dark kitchens, ghost kitchens, all kinds of things. I think that's going to accelerate, but we really do now need to hold the line on new commercial development. There are plenty of communities that have passed ordinances that require developers who want to develop a building larger than a certain size, 25,000 square feet, say, or 50,000 square feet, to basically be able to demonstrate that there's enough market demand to support that before they actually build the store, before they're given a permit to do so. Strengthen community-based banking. The real hero of the Paycheck Protection Program were community banks, community development financial institutions, credit unions. They were the ones who were able to process the highest volume of PPP loans for small businesses. The big national banks tended to cater to their larger clients first, and it was very hard for smaller businesses to get in there. I think this means that we have a lot of chinks in the armor of our banking system that we need to go back and address. One of the things that is still a little bit showing is that during the pandemic, a few months ago, the Treasury Department sort of quietly revised the rules for the Community Reinvestment Act and have loosened them a bit. We need to tighten that up and make sure that banks are in fact investing and serving the communities where they're located and close up those gaps. So there's a lot of work for us to do there on strengthening community-based banking. I thought said it very well. Calvert Impact Capital is an impact investment company. They make investments that have good social equity. And their CEO just last week said the pandemic has accelerated and amplified the flaws in our financial system, one that is built from the top down to serve the few, not the many. We need to turn that around over the next decade. We need to refocus economic development on small businesses. I'm beginning to hear from the people that I'm speaking with about these small business assistance programs, sort of a growing cry for, instead of us, spending millions of dollars to attract an Amazon distribution center that's only going to employ 10 people full-time and a lot of part-time workers, we need to instead be investing in small businesses. There are some communities that have really taken that to heart, like Portland, Oregon, a few years ago, completely redesigned its economic development program, renamed the program Prosper Portland, and have built it up around serving small businesses first and growing locally rather than recruiting from outside. Culpeper, Virginia has done something similar. They've brought their economic development office downtown and combined it with their small business development center, a foreign trade zone, and are really putting on Main Street their commitment to small businesses. So we need to be thinking about incentive programs that really do incentivize entrepreneurs to develop small businesses and grow them rather than the other way around. This is an example of a forgivable loan program that I've seen about 30 or 40 of around the country. This one is in Waterville, Maine. And basically what they do is they use tax increment finance revenue generated from their downtown TIF district to make a pool of money available every year. And they send out a list of their sort of top priorities for new businesses they'd like to see in the downtown. And if someone is willing to open that kind of business and is able to do so, then they get a loan of up to $50,000 that's forgivable by 20% per year over the course of 5 years. It also gives them the ability to write into the loan agreement things like the business has to be open 48 hours per week, it has to change its window displays twice a month, and things like that that are commonly written into leases at shopping malls, but rarely written into leases in downtowns. This is an incentive program that I really love from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. They had a block of buildings on the edge of the community that was completely vacant, being vandalized, graffitied, the windows were broken. And the city thought that if they could get a cluster of restaurants to locate there together, that it would turn the block around, create enough of a critical mass of users that it would kind of drive away the vandalism. So what they did was they went to established restaurateurs and asked if they would open a second restaurant here. They wanted to have established businesses who really knew what they were doing. The city partnered with 2 local financial institutions and then used $1.6 million of its block grant money to basically do this. A restaurant had to put in 30% of their own money, but they could borrow 70% from one of these 2 financial institutions. It's really expensive opening a restaurant because of the equipment costs and the furnishings, and it takes a while to build up a client base. So those first 2 years can be iffy. So what the city did was it used its block grant money to basically pay the debt service on those loans that the restaurants took out for the first 2 years. It wasn't a gift. The restaurants have to pay it back at the end of the 10-year loan period, but it gives the restaurants 2 years of breathing room where they don't have this crushing debt to repay while they can get established. Those are the kinds of incentives that I think we need to be thinking of and be creative about as we move out of the pandemic. Making zoning more small business friendly. This is a great time to go line by line through your zoning ordinances and see, are there barriers there to small business development? And I guarantee you're going to find a lot more than you ever would have expected. This is one that is a kind of an extreme example, but it's a good example. This was from I'm not going to mention the town, but a few years ago I was in Massachusetts, and giving a presentation, and this couple came up to me afterwards and said that they owned a car automotive car sound business. They sell sound systems for cars and trucks, but their kind of hook is that they don't install them in a shop. They have a fleet of vans instead that goes to wherever you are. So it's a great selling point for them because you don't have to then take your car to a shop and leave it there for a day and arrange a ride and all of that. They just come to your office or your home and do the work there. They decided to open up a showroom downtown, and because there was a good, worker base downtown, a good market for them. So they opened up this little, sort of showroom of what they had to offer. And we're doing gangbusters the first week. And then at the end of the week, the zoning inspector came in and said, I'm sorry, but you are classified as an automotive business, and automotive businesses are not permitted downtown. And they were like, but wait, we don't do any of the work here. It's all done off site. And he's like, I'm sorry, you're an automotive business and we're gonna have to fine you $100 a day until you move out. So they had to move. Crazy, crazy, crazy policy. And those kinds of things are tucked into zoning ordinances all over the place. So take a look and use this time to fix those things. Consider adopting a formula business ordinance. Formula business ordinances are meant to ensure that as downtowns become more successful, they don't become overrun with national retail chains, that they really hang on to the uniqueness and the unique diversity of businesses that make downtowns such wonderful places. There are about 30 or 40 communities in the country so far that have adopted formula business ordinances. Small towns and also big ones like San Francisco has them for a number of its neighborhoods, that basically just say we want a diverse business mix in the downtown. I was on a webinar last week with someone from South Carolina who was saying that this is actually an ideal time to begin talking about this because the appreciation for small business and small business diversity is so high right now. And the number of chains is declining so quickly that this is a good time to begin the process of talking about these. We have lots of examples of clone business ordinances on the ILSR website that you can take a look at. Promoting options for small business owners to own their property. This is something else that is kind of growing out of the pandemic, is that property values are dropping pretty quickly because vacancy is popping up. And some property owners are looking to sell their buildings now in a pretty distressed market. This could be an opportunity for communities to help condominiumized ground floor spaces in downtown buildings so that business owners can buy their space and not have the problem of escalating rents as the market eventually begins to pick back up. I'm also working with a couple of communities that are using a community land trust model to basically buy distressed downtown property right now and be able to make it available at affordable prices in the future for entrepreneurs and for businesses that they're trying to cultivate. So look for opportunities there for business ownership to sort of be managed in a more market responsible way. This is an interesting example. This is pre-pandemic, but this is in Port Washington, Wisconsin. An organization came together basically of people who were just concerned about a building that was going to be demolished that had a beloved restaurant in it, and they didn't want to see that happen. So they basically created an LLC that people could buy shares in, and they're doing downtown development now. So they saved their restaurant, they opened a cafe. Again, it's not profit motivated, it's community motivated, so it operates sort of in a different way. Now they're developing a building, a residential building right on the waterfront. There's a rendering of the inside of this building that they were able to do just with community-based capital. And then finally, build local and regional supply chains. One of the things that has really sort of hit the wall in the pandemic is the problem of getting supplies and inventory from distant places when flights are canceled and trade tariffs are complicating things. And you know, downtowns have always been places where things are made. Small manufacturing has always been a major component of downtown economies, whether it's furniture or in later days brew pubs and distilleries. But there's lots of other stuff that can be made, and I've talked to about a dozen communities so far since the pandemic began that are turning incubators that they had in their downtowns and co-working spaces into very deliberate manufacturing facilities for components of things that local companies and manufacturers need, so that instead of having to get things from across the country or around the world, businesses can procure things more easily locally. I talked to an electrician who told me that there was a certain kind of switch component that he couldn't get because they're only made now in China, and so it shut down an entire piece of his work. I talked to a jeweler who said that her original jewelry that she sells in her store, which is very high-end, all comes from Italy, and Italy was on lockdown for 4 months, and she couldn't get it. So talk to local manufacturers, regional manufacturers, see what they source out of town, and see if there are opportunities to begin to bring those things back to the community and hopefully to the downtown. This is a kind of a success story. Again, this is pre-pandemic, but this was a tailor in Texas whose business focused mostly on making wedding dresses and bridesmaids dresses for weddings. And when that factory collapsed in Bangladesh a couple of years ago, it hit him that probably there would be clothing designers in the US that would be looking for opportunities to manufacture clothing stateside instead of overseas. And sure enough, he found that they were all looking for that. So we signed a couple of big contracts. He contracted Jones, New York, and somebody else, I can't remember who the other one was, and partnered with a community college to basically ramp up the skill set of local workers, train people how to basically make commercial clothing, and is doing really well. I think there are going to be plenty of opportunities for us to create and seed businesses like that coming out of the pandemic. I think I have gone through all 26 of my things, and we'll stop now and take questions.
Kennedy, so we've got a question here that Connecticut Main Street Center has been asked to explore setting up a platform for online ordering pickup delivery for small businesses. Has this been done by other state coordinating programs that you're aware of, or local bids, Main Street programs? And is there any specific platform we should look at?
I haven't seen any done by Main Street organizations. I have heard the Main Street manager in Harrisonburg, Virginia, talking about doing this, but I don't know if she's actually done it yet. Her name is Andrea Dono. Probably worth checking in with her. I have seen a ton of these, though, kind of popping up tangentially, not done by Main Street organizations, but by people who care about small businesses and want to help. And I think there are so many of them popping up out there that it's like kind of too big a marketplace, and it needs to focus down a bit. Like I said, I really do like Shopify for individual businesses. I mentioned to Patrick earlier, but I'll mention to everyone now, there's another platform that's emerging that I really like called Glass. The company is called Glass, and they have a subdivision called Commerce. And what they're doing is trying to become an aggregator of small businesses who can sell things through procurement contracts to local governments, local and state governments. They have a model they've set up so far for Lexington, Kentucky, which is working really, really well. And then I think that the ChowNow platform for restaurants actually works really well for pickup and delivery too. So I guess I would, rather than sort of reinvent everything from scratch, I would probably look at the Glass commerce model, and I'd probably look at the ChowNow model and see if in there's some kind of a hybrid that might work.
Great.
But there are lots of people working on this out there, lots of them. So
I think this is a great question. Can you talk about the mix of partner stakeholders that should be in place to make this list of ideas a success? Who needs to be at the table?
Yeah, good question. I would say, as downtown organizations always need to have sort of a broad mix of supporters anyway, people involved in the organization, but I think it needs to be even broader. One of the things, I had a fascinating conversation with the Main Street manager in Emporia, Kansas, a month or two ago, about the small business assistance program that they'd put together there. And he said that program, their original partners were a community foundation, the Main Street organization, the Red Cross, and a radio station. And it was just kind of by coincidence that they all kind of came together. And they realized in the process of their conversations about a small business assistance program that the community, even though Emporia is in a tornado-prone area, they had never had any kind of sort of disaster preparedness program before in the community. So they came together to form that program, but out of it has grown this sort of larger initiative in the community to, build a strong, healthy, vibrant, resilient economic base. So I would say, look at sort of the major sectors when looking at the kind of support. You obviously need local government involved for thinking about things like the regulatory changes that may need to come in place. If there is a community development financial institution or community bank in the community, I would definitely get them involved in talking about how to sort of change the banking system so that it's more small business responsive. Transportation planning is going to be a big piece of this because transportation is changing dramatically. So I'd say, kind of look through the 26 issues in the handbook and think about who is best positioned to be able to help with each of those and put that coalition together.
Great. It seems like folks aren't going to be returning in droves to our retail establishments or our restaurants until they feel safe. And so what can the small businesses and Main Street groups do to really help the public feel safe in these establishments? You seen any great models of marketing campaigns, et cetera?
Yeah, I have seen some, and I think the ones that are that make people feel safest are the ones who are finding ways to serve customers without customers coming into the building. So whether it's curbside delivery or curbside pickup or home delivery or selling things out on the street, I think those things all make people feel safe, and there's a common denominator there. I got a flu shot this past weekend, and the pharmacy offered me the option of having my flu shot in the parking lot, which was, I thought, pretty responsive to meeting people where they are in terms of their levels of safety. I think using storefront display windows as much more active platforms is going to be important. I've seen one clothing store owner in Illinois did this like set of shelves in her storefront and had merchandise in each little cubby with a number under it, and you could just like text her from the outside and say, "I want number 4," and she'd bring it out to you on the street. So
yeah, we had something similar to that, I believe, in Middletown. Puzzles. They put up all the different puzzles right in the storefront window, and you could order it on your phone right as you're walking by. Just a great idea.
Yeah, it's like thinking in exact reverse. The things that used to take place inside a storefront are not going to happen outside, and the things that used to happen outside, like browsing, are going to happen in the storefront. You just have to think backwards for a while.
You mentioned an idea in your publication that was here in Simsbury, Connecticut, a Metro Biz restaurant that actually prepares meals, and it's sold in a local grocery store, which is adjacent to it. Have you
Super.
seen any other things like that where a grocery store and the restaurants are working together?
I've seen a bunch of those. I think they're happening all over the country in places. There was another one in Maine. I saw one in I've seen a couple in Iowa. I've seen a bunch in Texas. And frankly, I think that some of those are happening because the Main Street organizations have had good relationships with other businesses in the community for a long time and have been able to broker those deals, those arrangements.
A really cool program is actually happening in Vermont, where they're utilizing, I believe, CARES Act and other funding to actually pay restaurants to prepare meals for food insecure people for free.
Yeah.
So folks can go right up and get the meals, and it's a great way to keep the restaurants afloat. So that could be a model that we could look at across the state potentially.
Yeah. Lots of communities have done things like Middleburg, Virginia bought, I think, $40,000 worth of gift cards from Middleburg restaurants and then just mailed them to everybody in town. So the restaurants got sales, the people got meals.
We have a local Main Street group here in Connecticut, First Down Downtown in Windsor, and they have a gift card program that is available to any of the retailers or restaurants in the downtown. So it's not a specific gift certificate or gift card for one single restaurant, but you can buy it and then utilize it at 30 or 40 different businesses downtown. And it seemed to work out really great in the last holiday season. And that might be something that communities across the state would want to try to adopt.
Cool.
As the Congress is back in session, you mentioned the PPP potentially getting funded again. What can we do as local economic developers and Main Street managers do to advocate at the state or federal level to get more resources for the small businesses? Obviously, if these small businesses fail and there's business closures, we're going to have vacancies on our main streets, and it's going to take a lot longer to recover from this. So how do we try to get those additional resources brought to bear?
Yeah, well, I think the big focus right now should be federal. I mean, everyone should be in contact with your members of Congress to push them to do another relief package quickly and get over this ridiculous impasse that they sort of chronically have. One of the things that I've learned in a big way from looking at all these relief programs that local governments are running are that local entities are really the most efficient way to reach small businesses. They know what the issues are, they know where the challenges are, they know how to do the triage, and that's something that the federal government doesn't know. So we need the feds to get money to states, to get money to communities ASAP to do exactly that.
What's your prognosis? Do you think they're going to, prior to the election, or is it likely to be delayed?
Well, if they delay, we're going to lose, 100,000 small businesses. It's going to be awful. I mean, businesses have sort of made it. There's been this sort of, parsing going on where the businesses that were undercapitalized and struggling, before the pandemic, those have closed pretty quickly. Some of them were assisted by these first stopgap programs that provided April rent, but they're largely gone now. Now we're getting into a phase, and you can see this from the Census Bureau's Small Business Pulse that they're doing. They're doing these weekly surveys throughout the pandemic to sort of measure how well businesses are doing, if they're struggling with certain things, if they're having a hard time with supply chain issues or with staffing issues. And it looks like there's about to be another drop-off, a big drop-off. So those who have been able to hold it together for 5 or 6 months maybe can't hold it together for 8 months. So we really hope that Congress gets something done in the next couple of weeks. So call right now.
Yeah, definitely. We agree with that sentiment. Please contact both of our senators and each of your state representatives and make a pitch. We got to get that additional allocation of PPP. There's a couple of other things that are out there right now, like the Connecticut Restaurant Association and National Restaurant Association. There's got to be a significant focus on aid for restaurants. And then I'm sure many of you are aware of the Save Our Stages campaign. And that is for the major performing arts locations across the state that certainly have a major impact on our downtowns, the ripple effects. And so it's some funding for the, the Warner theaters, the Bushnell theaters, Long Wharf, and those could be really beneficial at this point. And we know for certain that, like in Torrington, for the Warner Theater, the small businesses that are in that general area going to have a much more difficult time if the Warner Theater isn't stable. So, Kennedy, you got some ideas as to how we can help, the artists and performing artists, visual artists, and how they can be tied into this whole small business resource recovery phase?
Yeah, it's really tough. Obviously, it's a tough time for them. Obviously, supporting their organizations. Many, as you all have seen, of course, many performing arts organizations are gravitating online and offering performances online. Patronize them, support them when they do that, just as you would if they were offering something in person. I think one of the big opportunities that we have at a local level is to get performers and artists involved in re-envisioning promotional events for downtowns. They're creative people. They can think of amazing things, and we need to do promotional activities differently. So get them looped into that, and if you can, pay them for their time and expertise.
We have a question here following up on a question. How do we get local banks on board with small businesses that don't have much capital left to leverage? And this also seems to be skewed against minority businesses. What's the elevator speech we need to approach local banks?
Yeah, well, big topic. And you have to sort of look at the entire banking system and think about what's working and not working there. But I think one of the things that, in sort of the global sense, the big picture sense, that can happen is for us to develop pools of community capital that can be used as basically loan guarantees to make banks more willing to make riskier loans and make them more quickly. There was a great thing that Fresno County's pension fund did in the midst of all of this a couple of months ago. They, like all government pension funds, they kind of invest in these big pools of, mortgages floating around out there. And they realized that actually if they invested in buying local mortgages and business loans, that they'd be providing greater liquidity for small business lending in Fresno County. So they suddenly yanked a lot of the money that they'd invested in, who knows what mutual fund from who knows where, or sort of mortgage pool, and instead put it in exclusively Fresno loans. And all of a sudden, Fresno banks were making twice as many loans as they had before because they had the liquidity to do so. So I think we need to be thinking sort of in that direction of how can we, keep capital local for loan guarantees and for backups and liquidity.
Great. Your student, former student Todd Bryant has asked, are you aware of any programs specifically focused on theaters?
There are some. If you look through the big list on the website, you'll see, and just search for theater, you'll find that there are a few programs that states have created just to help performing arts groups. There also are lots on the private sector side. There have been some major investors in theater support funds from everybody from the Getty Foundation to Doris Duke Foundation Charitable Trust has made some major investments. So there are some that are out there, and I think it would be great for every community to have sort of a cash mob event of some kind, virtually and safely, for their local theater or theaters to help give them some underpinnings during this difficult time.
I love that idea. A cash mob for each of our historic theaters. That'd be great. So we got Small Business Saturday approaching in a couple of months. Kennedy, from your experience, how can we maximize that here in the state of Connecticut and beyond?
Well, this is going to be a kind of a different Small Business Saturday, I think. I mean, not just in terms of how people are shopping, but there's an enormous rush of support for small businesses right now in the country, like I have not seen in my lifetime. I get 200 or 300 emails a day from Google word search files that I've set up looking for all sorts of issues that are related to this. And I see a couple hundred messages a day that are all about it's important for us to save our local shops. It's important for us to support small businesses. I have not seen a single article saying we need to support our shopping malls and our national chains. It's just not there. There's a groundswell of support for small businesses. So I think that planning a little more carefully than we have before, so that we're really maximizing the benefit of that groundswell of support, is going to be important. I think we can make this one really be a knock it out of the ballpark kind of event this year.
That's great. Any other questions? I don't see any in the chat. So thank you very much, Kennedy, for a wonderful presentation and your insights. And I encourage everybody to please read the publication. She has so many different actual tactics and examples from across the country that you can try to implement in your own communities.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. I'll bring back the screen here. All right, sorry that took me a second to bring up, but I wanted to let folks know to please go to the Connecticut Main Street Center website. We just have a wealth of resources at your disposal 24 hours a day. One of the things that our Associate Director, Kim Parsons-Whitaker, got into place really soon after the pandemic was underway, was to create a small business resource video library. We had Arnett Muldrow, consultants, prepare these short vignette videos on a number of different topics, including e-commerce platforms and can you get established with that. You know, the National Main Street Center itself had done a survey, and they had determined that 63% of the small businesses did not have an online presence. This pandemic is certainly pushing people to move towards that, and we've got just this great series relative to, you know, it's not just setting up something on the website. You have to figure out the delivery, you have to figure out the payment system, and there's videos on each of those things. There's videos about social media, both for small businesses as well as the Main Street programs. Tips for health and beauty businesses, and also a great video on how to do effective retail photography. So we encourage you to go check out the website and learn more about that. Our next webinar is on September 30th. We've got just an outstanding panel, including Trip Muldrow, a partner at Arnett Muldrow and Associates, who's going to facilitate a discussion with two very dynamic speakers. Karen Pollard, who is the Economic Development Director of the town of New Milford. You may not have met her yet, but you will in future events at Connecticut Main Street Center. She's currently the president of the Northeastern Economic Developers Association. They're doing some dynamic work in their downtown. We are hoping to visit their downtown in the spring for one of our spotlights on Main Street. And we also have Jason Vincent, the president of the Norwich Community Development Corporation. I'm sure many folks on the session today are familiar with Jason's work, and he's now assumed the head of that Community Development Corporation. Is doing just a phenomenal job. They're going to be talking about the ways that they've tried to handle the pandemic and what sort of specific implementation steps they've taken, and their ideas going into the winter months. We will be sending out a follow-up survey. Again, please complete that so that you can get your AICP credits, as well as to help us determine our future programming. We thank everybody for attending today. We will post this presentation, the recording, as well as Kennedy's publication on our website. So enjoy the day, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon.